Welcome to worship with Sabbath Streams Ministries. Our desire is to provide for a spirit-filled, Messianic-style worship experience. We hope you are blessed by today's service.
The waters of life, and I will be like a tree planted by the water.
You know what I'm doing. Say hi to the people. That was kind of good. We ready? We're ready. Okay. This is the month of Mar Cheshvan or Cheshvan, depending on who you're talking to. It has two different names, and actually, I'll explain that when I teach a little bit. Father, I ask for tonight that you would be blessed. I ask that we would learn from you. I ask that what is done and what is said is glorifying to you. I thank you for the opportunity that you give us to learn your word and to learn about you and to learn about what you do in time and in what you do in seasons. And I ask, Father, that you would give us wisdom as we walk through this season too. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, amen and amen. We're going to start with Desert Song. Feel free to get flags or instruments or whatever you want to do.
This is my prayer in the desert, when all that's within me feels dry. This is my prayer in the hunger and need. My God is the God who provides. This is my prayer in the fire, in weakness or trial or pain. There is a faith proved of more worth than gold, so refine me, Lord, through the flame. And I will bring praise, I will bring praise. No weapon formed against me shall remain. I will rejoice, I will declare, God is my victory and He is here. I will bring praise, I will bring praise. No weapon formed against me shall remain. I will rejoice, I will declare, God is my victory and He is here. This is my prayer in the battle, when triumph is still on its way. I am a conqueror and co-heir with Christ, so firm on His promise I'll stand. All of my life, in every season, you are still God. I have a reason to sing, I have a reason to worship. All of my life, in every season, you are still God. I have a reason to sing, I have a reason to worship. And I will bring praise, I will bring praise. No weapon formed against me shall remain. I will rejoice, I will declare, God is my victory and He is here. This is my prayer in the harvest, when favor and providence flow. I know I'm filled to be emptied again. The seed I've received I will sow.
All of my life.
In every season, you are still God. I have a reason to sing, I have a reason to worship. All of my life, in every season, you are still God. And I have a reason to sing, I have a reason to worship. And I will bring praise, I will bring praise. No weapon formed against me shall remain.
is my victory, and He is here. I will bring praise, I will bring praise. No weapon formed against me shall remain. I will rejoice, I will declare, God is my victory, and He is here. I will bring praise, I will bring praise. No weapon formed against me shall remain. I will rejoice, I will declare, God is my victory, and He is here. God is my victory, and He is here. God is my victory, He is here. This is a month of quiet, a month of silence sometimes. A month that we can rest. In the secret, in the quiet place, in the stillness you are there. In the secret, in the quiet hour, I wait only for you, 'cause I want to know you more. In the secret, in the quiet place, in the secret, in the quiet place, in the stillness you are there. In the secret, in the quiet hour, I wait only for you, 'cause I want to know you more. I want to know you. I want to hear your voice. I want to know you more. I want to touch you. I want to see your face. I want to know you more. I am reaching for the highest goal, that I might receive the prize. Pressing onward, pushing every hindrance aside, out of my way, 'cause I want to know you more. I want to know you. I want to hear your voice. I want to know you more. I want to touch you. I want to see your face. I want to know you more. I want to know you. I want to hear your voice. I want to know you more and more. I want to touch you. I want to see your face. I want to know you more. In the secret, in the quiet place, in the stillness you are there. Every season has something different. And every season we want to bless the Lord. This is taken from the Baruch, a traditional song, traditional prayer. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, eternal.
holy King. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, whose word brings on the evening. Baruch Adonai, Amvorach, Le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai, Amvorach, Le'olam va'ed. By wisdom, O Lord, heaven's gates open up. With understanding you order the seasons, creating day and night, turning darkness into light, arranging the stars to your pleasing. Baruch Adonai, Amvorach, Le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai, Amvorach, Le'olam va'ed. Oh, blessed be the King, to the Holy One we sing. Lord of hosts is your name. Oh, ever-living God, rule over us, now forever the same. Baruch Adonai, Amvorach, Le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai, Amvorach, Le'olam va'ed. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, eternity's holy King. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, whose word brings on the evening. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. And you're here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. Lord, I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. Never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. Never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 That is who you are.
I never know quite how to end that song because you know what? It just goes on and on and on, and it's who he is, and who he is goes on and on and on, and it's wonderful. And he is the one who works when we can't see it. He is the one who is bringing life when we think we see death. That's his promise to us. I forgot to take out all my flags, didn't I? I took all my flags to Tammy's last week. As my shofar. Didn't I bring him back? I don't see him over there. I have to look for my flags in my bag with the shofar and the flags. It's like, what did I do with that? I just now realized that. I forgot. I went to Tammy's last week for a night of worship. And one of the things that happens sometimes when Tammy and I get going with the deep worship stuff is that all of a sudden I'm hearing something that she's not playing. And and it works out okay. It's okay because, you know, she gives room for things. She gives room for things. And she was playing a chord progression. And I kept hearing this phrase, and I was sitting out in the audience, right? I'm sitting out in the pew, and I kept hearing this phrase, and she's playing the chord progression, and she looks at me. I went, how did she know? In your presence, there's fullness of joy. In your presence, there's fullness of joy. In your presence, there's fullness of joy, and it strengthens the weary heart. I haven't got the melody all worked out yet, but but I've got the words. So when my heart grows weary, I will bless the Lord. And when my heart grows weary, I will bless the Lord. I will set the Lord before me by giving praise unto his name. And when my heart grows weary, I will bless the Lord. For in his presence there is fullness of joy. In his presence there is fullness of joy. In his presence there is fullness of joy, and it strengthens the weary heart. He is at my right hand, and I will not be moved. Yes, he is at my right hand, so I will not be moved. I will be glad and will rejoice and will glory in his name. With him at my right hand, I will not be moved. In your presence there is fullness of joy, and it strengthens the weary heart. I'll be working on the melody, but so we can sing it, because I'm just like, Lord, you haven't given me a song in a long time, and that was kind of wild, and we didn't record it. Usually we record those nights, but anyway, that was sitting there, and I thought that was kind of an appropriate thing to share. The strengthening the weary hearts is an important part. I have some verses for people. I did not mark the pulpit Bible. Are you guys okay looking at verses? If you're okay looking at verses and you're willing to come up and read one, I have some verses for people to read. I usually mark it, and I, for some reason, did not do that today, but, you know. And if you'd rather use your version or whatever for this one, this time it's okay, but we do need to have it mic'd because we're on Facebook Live, hi people, and YouTube, and hi people, and some people are probably watching. And Craig, were we able to disable the comments thing on YouTube?
Yes, we did.
Oh, good. Because last Saturday, we had people having a conversation in the comments section while we were... And there's no way, the way YouTube is set up, to go to the comments section and respond to people after the fact. You can respond to them in a live video in the comments section, only live. And so I couldn't respond to anything. I know, it's weird, isn't it? Now, if they make comments in the regular comment part, we can respond, but... So for those of you who don't know, we've technically already begun this month. We were supposed to have this last week, but with doing Rosh Hashanah, and then Yom Kippur, and then Sukkot, and then immediately follow it with a Rosh HaKodesh, well, we decided to postpone a week, which is good. Last month, did you notice we did not have a Rosh HaKodesh? We didn't have it at all because we had Rosh Hashanah. You see, the first month, the month of Tishri, well, not the first month, the beginning of the calendar year, the month of Tishri, because the calendar years are numbered from Rosh Hashanah, or the Day of Trumpets. The months are numbered from Aviv in the spring, just before Passover. So technically, last month was the 7th month, but it's the first month of the year. I know, it gets complicated, doesn't it? But that's part of where we sometimes don't understand things out of Scripture, because we don't understand the different ways it's calculated. But you know, we have school calendars versus standard calendars, right? So it's the 3rd month of school this year. But that's not the 3rd month of the calendar year, right? And so the months are counted from Aviv, counted from the month of Passover, because that is the beginning of new life in Jesus. It's the beginning of new life in God. It's the beginning of the redemption. So that's where we count the months from. And that's the liturgical calendar. That's how we celebrate the festivals, come from that. Because every festival depends upon Passover. And so just kind of like the school year, we're here. It starts here in September. My family in Arizona, they start at the beginning of August. I've known people that have started in July. It's like, what? They started all different times now. But last month was Tishri. It was the first month of the year, but the 7th month. And we didn't celebrate Rosh Chodesh because that month gives way to Rosh Hashanah. that month steps aside in a sense. It's the month of creation, by the way, the coming of the man, the crowning of man as the king in the garden. Someday it will be the crowning of Messiah, I believe, in the kingdom. And I'm looking forward to that. Last month it would have been the tribe of Ephraim. Now Ephraim, we have his banner up on the back wall right now. He's been moved back there already. Because we're going to be moved. I don't know how Janie's planning on doing it, but that's okay. And Ephraim is the firstborn son of Joseph. Well, technically no, but yes. I'll explain that too. The tribe of Ephraim gives up their place in the calendar for the coming King of Kings, the rightful ruler from Judah. Ephraim is not necessarily celebrated during the month, but the king is. And it is seen as an honor to be the tribe that makes way for the king. But it's also a making right of a great wrong when Jeroboam separated the kingdom out from the house of David. When he separated the kingdom out from the house of David after Solomon, Jeroboam and Rehoboam, he brought idolatry to the northern kingdom. He was Ephraim. And the tribe of Ephraim was the tribe that led the way to idolatry, a competing priesthood, and a competing festival cycle. The northern kingdom set up their own schedule to compete with the one out of Jerusalem. Why? Because Jeroboam, as the king setting himself up in the northern kingdom, didn't want to risk having his people go down into the southern kingdom because they might move there and he might lose loyal subjects. Well, so the tribe of Ephraim, in a sense, is told, okay, you didn't honor the king, now you will. And that tribe steps aside. But that was last month, right? That was last month. This month is the month of Cheshvan, or Mar Cheshvan, and it actually began last Wednesday, the 6th, at sunset by the common calendar, October 6th. It starts on different days of our calendar every year. All of these do. But it actually began last Wednesday at sunset. It's the second month of the civil calendar, or the calendar of the numbered years. And it's the 8th month of the liturgical calendar. The biblical name for this is Bul. It's actually called that in 1 Kings chapter 6. That's what they called it before the Babylonian captivity. The names of the months all changed when they came back from Babylon. And they were changed for various reasons, but some of it was the changing of some of the language. The name Bul refers to the grass withering and the lack of rain. The fact that the grass is dying. The fact that we need rain. That's what Bul, that name, refers to. But now when you look at Mar Cheshvan, it has a slightly different meaning. The word mar in Hebrew means bitter, or it could mean a drop. You know, a drip is a drop, right? It can mean a drop, or it can mean bitter. The name Mara means bitter or bitterness. Remember, Naomi said, call me Mara now, because I'm bitter. And God said to her, no, you're going to be redeemed on this. And she was. Mar means bitter, but it can also mean a drop. The word Chesh, as in Sheshvan, means rain. Or it can mean quiet, depending on the context. That's one of the most interesting things to me about Hebrew. The same word can have an opposite meaning almost, depending on the context it's put in. So we have contrasting meanings to this name. Bitter or drop. Rain or quiet. I kind of look at it this way. Mar Cheshvan can be a bitter rain, or it can be a drop of rain, or it can be a bitter silence, or it can be a drop of welcome silence. You know, sometimes silence is good. quietness can be good. In fact, as I was trying to figure out what songs I wanted to do tonight, and I had already picked out some songs, and then I decided I was really tired, and so I laid down for about a 20-minute rest. And as I was laying there, all of a sudden I was hearing that in the secret, in the quiet place, and I went, oh, you want to hear that one tonight? That wasn't in my list. So I had to get up and change something in it, because as I was laying there thinking about the meaning behind all of this, he's saying the quietness, in the quiet, in that silent time, in that quiet time, a drop of silence in a hard situation can mean all the good in the world. In this month, there are no holy days, no holidays. There are no feasts or fasts. There's not even mitzvot. You know, there's one other month where there are no festivals. One other month where there are no festivals. But in that month, we're counting the Omer, so there's a mitzvah every day to count the Omer. There's a command. Every day you are to count. Count the day, count the day, count the day, count the day. But in this month, there's none of those. None of it. It's quiet. No activities other than the regular Shabbat, which is a day of rest. There's no memorials. And yet, historically, there's some pretty important things that have happened in this month, which is interesting to me. You know, after the busyness of last month, it's kind of nice to take a breath. And God knows we need our rest. He knows it. So even though historically some really important things took place during this month, and biblically important events, God has not allowed us to honor them yet. In Judaism, it is thought that this month is left for Mashiach, that there's no festivals or anything because this is the month for Messiah. There will be a festival for Messiah when Messiah comes. There will be sometime in this month because it's the only month without one, so we got to have one, so it must be reserved for Messiah. That's a possibility. I don't know. I do know that it's the season where rain begins, so they're beginning the prayers for rain. Pray for rain in the season of rain. This is a season of rain, so you pray for rain. Why? Because we've just gone through a dry summer. We just poured out the water on the temple steps, taking from a well that's probably down pretty far, as an act of faith, saying, okay, God, you've brought us this water, so we're going to pour this water out as an offering to you, and it flows down the temple steps on the last day of Sukkot, which, by the way, is the day that Yeshua stood up and said, I'm the water, come drink of me. He was referring to that ceremony where they're pouring the water out as a way of saying, God, pour yourself out over us, and we will pour ourselves out for you. And that water, they got buckets and buckets and buckets from a well that was probably getting farther down and farther down and farther down. And that's a sacrifice in an arid region. You know, we are going through a drought here in this country, in this part of the world. I know people whose wells on their property have gone down, are dry. They're having to truck in water in places they've always had water. So for them to pour water out would really be costly. Same thing in Jerusalem. During this season, as they've poured the water out, and now they begin to pray for the rain. God, you need to refill us. You need to refill us. You need to refill our water. You need to refill us. You need to do all of that. And so they begin to pray. And it's believed that if it hasn't started praying, let's see what day, I wrote it down, now I can't find it. I think like by the 10th of the month, if it hasn't started raining, then fasting begins to cry out for God for rain, because then it's going to be a drought, and they don't want a drought. March Heshvan. Historical events, that's part of what I look at when I look at what a month is. What did God do in this month, in this season? What did God do historically? Because God's the same yesterday and today and forever. So what he has done then, he will do again. It might not look exactly the same, but he's still going to do it. It's the way he is. On the 11th day of the month of Shishvan is the day that we have the recorded Methuselah's death. Do you remember who Methuselah was? He was the longest living man. On his name, by the way, it meant, if you look into the Hebrew of it, behind it, when he dies, it comes. When he leaves, it comes. That's what Methuselah meant. That becomes important. Methuselah died on the 11th of Sheshvan. That's also the day that Rachel died. The anniversary of her death is on the 11th of Sheshvan, the same day as Methuselah's. But in Rachel's death, there was a birth. Benjamin. She named him son of my sorrow, Ben-Omi. And his father said, no, I'm not going to let him stick with that name. No. Benjamin, son of my right hand, son of my power, son of authority. So Rachel died, but in her death, Benjamin came to life. Methuselah died. What happened after his death? Well, not too far later, on the 17th of March Heshvan, the great flood came. In the year and the month that Methuselah died, God flooded the earth. He began the flood. There was another death in March Heshvan on the 15th, though, and that's the death of Mattathias, or Mattathias. Now, he's someone that we don't know a whole lot about because he's in the book of Maccabees. First and Second Maccabees he's talked about, because he's the one who began the uprising that we celebrate when we celebrate Hanukkah. He's the one that began it. He's the one that stood in the center of the town when he was commanded to slaughter a pig. He lifted his sword, and instead of slaughtering the pig, he killed the general that was trying to make him do that. And he raised his sword and he said, if you're on the Lord's side, follow me. And people came to follow him, to fight against the Greek armies that were trying to force them away from honoring God. And it began a battle that he didn't finish. But after he died, on the 15th of March Heshvan, his son stood up and said, okay, guys, we got to start winning. And Judah, the Maccabee, or Judah the Hammer, took over, and he led to a victorious conquest. They won against insurmountable odds. Totally impossible. Bunch of people on foot winning against an army on elephants? What? We'll talk about all that more when we get closer to Hanukkah, though. But there was a death. But in that death, again, there was a resurrection. There was the raising up. In Rachel's death, there was the raising up of Benjamin. In Mattathias' death, there was the raising up of Judah, the Maccabee. When Methuselah died, the flood came. The rain started on the 17th of March Heshvan in the Hebrew year 1656. That's 2105 before Christ. And it flooded the whole earth. Only Noah and his family were said to survive, and they survived in the ark. Who has Genesis 7, 10, and 11? Genesis chapter 7, 10, and 11. Let's read that. Thank y'all.
Takes me longer to get to it than it does to read it. Takes me longer to get to it than it does to read it.
It just might.
10 and 11. Chapter 7 of Genesis. It came about after the 7 days that the water of the flood came upon the earth, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month. On the same day all the fountains of the great deep burst open, and the floodgates of the sky were opened.
It was all opened up. The rain came. There were a few people on an ark, some animals that God had put there. And they were saved. What's interesting to me is in Mar Cheshvan, the flood began. In Mar Cheshvan, the flood ends. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Genesis 8, 4, and 5. And then 13 and through 16. At least we just have to flip one page.
In the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark rested on Mount Ararat. The water decreased steadily until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, the tops of the mountains became visible. Now it came about in the 601st year, in the 1st month, on the 1st of the month, the water was dried up from the earth. Then Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the surface of the ground was dried up. In the 7th month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. Then God spoke to Noah, saying,
Come out of the ark, you and your wife, your sons and your son's wife. So we have the rain stopping after the 40 days and 40 nights, right? But the earth was still flooded. And the earth stayed flooded. And it stayed flooded. And it took a long time for the water to go down. It didn't happen right away. He wasn't on the ark 40 days and 40 nights. He was on it for a year. He was on it for a year. And finally, the 27th day of Mar Cheshvan, the earth was dry. And he took the top off and got out. Now, it had dried up before. Did you notice it says that? It's a 600, in the 1st month, on the 1st day, the water had dried up. And Noah removed the cover of the ark, and he looked, and the surface of the ground had dried, but he didn't get off the boat. He didn't get off the boat. He was still there. In the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, that's when God said, okay, get off the boat. Get off the boat. Get off this boat. Go out and multiply. Replenish the earth. 1 year and 10 days after the rain began, God commanded Noah to leave the ark. I have to wonder, was Noah afraid to leave? Had he just gotten so used to being on it, he's like, I don't know if I want to change anything now. We finally got this worked out, you know. We got all, what's out there? I don't know. But God had to tell him to leave. I find that interesting. Makes me feel a little less guilty when I hesitate on something. And God has to kick me and say, go, do it. And I'm like, okay. We all have those times, don't we? We have this great man of faith who built a boat because he was told to. There weren't large bodies of water where he was at. It had never rained. God says water's gonna come out of the sky, Noah. Huh? What? So Mar Cheshvan, the water began, and in Mar Cheshvan, God said, it's over, get out. Go. Your salvation's complete. Go. Refill the earth. So this month has seen a lot of death. We talked about that, right? Methuselah died. And when he died, it wasn't long after that the flood came. The prophecy of his name came to be. Rachel died. Mattathias died. The waters that came from the heaven destroyed everything on the surface of the earth. A lot of death. But there's also a lot of life, a lot of birth. The receding of the flood, the command to repopulate, the raising up of the Maccabees, the birth of Benjamin. There's a lot of birth. All in all, it's still a quiet month. The beginning of rain. Often the first snow falls in the mountains. No feasts, no fasts. We catch our breath and we wait. And we wait for the next big move of God. Just like Noah waited to leave the ark. Remember, sometimes it's in the waiting and in the quiet that God speaks the loudest. And he speaks the clearest. It's in the waiting and in the quiet he speaks the loudest and he speaks the clearest. He says, "Be still and know that I am God." Stop striving. Stop striving. Wait before me a little bit. Let me speak. In this season, this is the time that the seeds prepare to be reborn in the spring. How do they do that? They have to die. I have some sunflowers that we've been growing at my house this year. Thanks to my sister who sent me these sunflower seeds and said, "Oh, just put them in a little cup and then you put it out in the yard and wait till..." Man, sunflowers. Sunflowers. Whoa. They were big, huh? Beautiful sunflowers. Well, guess what? They're all dying. They're all dying. So I said to my sister, I said, "What do I do now?" She goes, "You pull them up by the roots." What? You cut off the flowers, you dry them, and you get the seeds from there. But pull that plant up by the roots. Really? Yes, because you want to start over next year. Why? Because if you don't, the roots of the old growth will prevent the new growth from coming in. I was like, oh, I can preach that. I can preach that. My sister just laughed. She knows me. But the seeds have to be dried. The plants have to be taken care of, pulled up, or cut back. My rose bush I'll just cut back. It doesn't have to be pulled up by the roots, but it does need to be trimmed and cut back to have a good, full bunch of flowers next year. And this is the season we do that. This is the season for pruning. This is the season for cutting back. This is the season where, well, if you want to have a certain type of wildflower that my sister sent me, she goes, "Okay, now's the time to spread those on the ground where you're going to want them to grow up." What? Spread them on the ground and cover them with a little bit, or just rake them in, and that way they can freeze. What? And that way the shells can get softened in the spring, and then you'll have flowers. What? I've never been a gardener. I'm an accidental gardener. I've never been good with plants, but this is the month, this is the season where we allow that which needs to be reborn to die. In the quiet, in the silence, underneath the dirt. This is the month of the tribe of Manasseh, who has Genesis 41, 50, and 52. Next time I'll try to remember to pre-select them.
Genesis 41, 50 through 52. Now before the year of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bore to him. Joseph named the firstborn Manasseh, for, he said, God has made me forget all my trouble and all my father's household. He named the second Ephraim, for, he said, God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction.
Okay, wait a minute. Then wasn't Ephraim the first from the first month and Manasseh the second from the second month? That's because although Manasseh was born first, when Jacob adopts them as his own, when Israel makes them equal in his own sonship, he switches their order so that Manasseh becomes second and Ephraim first. Genesis 48, 1 through 6.
Now it came about after these things that Joseph was told, Behold, your father is sick. So he took his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, with him. When it was told to Jacob, Behold, your son Joseph has come to you, Israel collected his strength and sat up in the bed. Then Jacob said to Joseph, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me. And he said to me, Behold, I will make you fruitful and numerous, and I will make you a company of peoples, and will give this land to your descendants after you for an everlasting possession. Now your 2 sons, who were born to you in the land of Egypt, before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine, as Reuben and Simeon are. But your offspring that have been born after them shall be yours. They shall be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance.
So they become Jacob's direct sons. Genesis 48, 15 through 20. You got the same one? And this is where he switches the order.
He blessed Joseph and said, The God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and may my name live on in them, and the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and may they grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. When Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on Ephraim's head, it displeased him, and he grasped his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. Joseph said to his father, Not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Place your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son. I know he also will become a people, and he also will be great. However, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations. He blessed them that day, saying, By you Israel will pronounce blessing, saying, May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh.
And on Shabbat, when the blessings are said around the table, after the husband blesses his wife, they bless the children. And they say of the sons, May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. There's a really cool song that we have that I've heard that expands that a little bit. May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh, forgetting the things of the past, looking at the fruitful future. The sons today are still blessed by those names. And Ephraim became first. Though Jacob said that Ephraim would be the greater, and they were, the land that was given to Manasseh by Joshua was larger, a larger expanse than Ephraim's. And in the blessings given to the tribes by Jacob and by Moses, both groups, these 2 brothers, are blessed together. Though adopted as brothers, they walked in the blessings still of their father Joseph. So they got a double blessing. because they had the blessing that was given specifically to them. And then they have the blessing that was given to their father and brought down to them. Who has Genesis 49, 22 through 26?
Joseph is a fruitful bough by a spring. Its branches run over a wall. The archers bitterly attacked him and shot at him and harassed him, but his bow remained firm, and his arms were agile. From the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, from there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. From the God of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breasts and of the womb. The blessings of your father have surpassed the blessings of my ancestors, up to the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. May they be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of the one distinguished among his brothers.
So there's a great blessing for Joseph. His two sons get to enjoy it also. Deuteronomy 33, 13 through 17. Okay.
Of Joseph he said, Blessed of the Lord be his land, with the choice things of heaven, with the dew, and from the deep lying beneath, and with the choice yield of the sun, and with the choice produce of the months, and with the best things of the ancient mountains, and with the choice things of the everlasting hills, and with the choice things of the earth and its fullness, and the favor of him who dwelt in the bush. Let it come to the head of Joseph, and to the crown of the head of the one distinguished among his brothers. As the firstborn of his ox, majesty is his, and his horns are the horns of the wild ox. With them he will push the peoples all at once to the ends of the earth, and those are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and those are the thousands of Manasseh.
Yes. So from this blessing by Moses, we get the symbol that is used for the tribes. With Joseph, and he's up there next to last in the banners, he's the dark one. We have that stalk of wheat, a fruitful harvest. Joseph gets a fruitful harvest. Ephraim, it's behind you, that's a bull. That's that bull that charges, the strength. And then Manasseh is an ox. Honestly, I can't tell the difference between bulls and oxen unless it's the full animal. But, Manasseh is the ox, and the ox represents the tribe of Manasseh. The bull represents the tribe of Ephraim. The stalk of wheat represents the tribe of Joseph. Because, yes, Joseph still has his own tribe. So when we add all of that together, now we have not 12, but 14. However, every time they're listed in Scripture, there's 12. So somebody always gets left out or rearranged. That's not an uncommon thing. We have, with the horns of the ox, he will gore the nations at the ends of the earth. Ephraim and Manasseh, yep, they went out to the ends of the earth, all right. They spread out all over the place. In the diaspora, they went, right? Ephraim was one of the first carried off. And the half-tribe of Manasseh that stayed outside the boundaries of Israel was with them. They were gone. They were taken out. They were dispersed, became almost lost. But there are those who recognize their heritage and who have received their heritage. It is believed by many that Manasseh are the ones that migrated to the North America, migrated here. I've seen some evidence of some ancient Hebrew and stuff in some of the old ruins of the first peoples. It's kind of an interesting concept. There's even a place in Texas where you can go, and it's in ancient Hebrew. It's very similar to the pictographic Hebrew, and it's basically the Ten Commandments on a stone that's been there for generation after generation after generation after generation after generation. Predates the colonies, which is kind of an interesting concept, isn't it? Someone wrote out the Ten Commandments in what is now the grand state of Texas. There's a group in northeast India. I can't pronounce it. Kukichin Mizo. Anyway, they call themselves B'nai Menashe. The B'nai Menashe, the sons of Manasseh. And in 2005, the chief Sephardic rabbi of Israel announced that he accepted their claim and they were allowed to return under the law of return to Israel. They were able to migrate, and many of them have. It's a little tribe separated out in India that kept to themselves. And they still honored Shabbat. There are some in Africa, by the way, that claim to be part of Ephraim. And that group has also been granted permission to come to Israel and the law of return. Both cases, they are asked to go ahead and convert and start studying so that they can learn what they're supposed to know. Because in both cases, many things were lost because these groups have been segregated and by themselves. But they're being allowed to return. I find that interesting. Isn't that what's predicted in Scripture? That the sons of Israel would return, right? Manasseh as a tribe split early, right? Before they even went into the promised land, that tribe split. Half of them stayed east of the Jordan, half of them came in to the promised land, and they were given a really large portion of land. And sometimes when you read about the half tribe of Manasseh, and then you have to figure out which half tribe. The one in the land or the one outside the land? The one that expanded the boundaries of Israel right away, or the one that has the big boundary within Israel? Now, I find some of my favorite people have come from the tribe of Manasseh. The daughters of Zelophehad, who has Joshua 17:3-6. They're among my favorite people in Scripture because they stood up for what was right.
However, Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, had no sons, only daughters. And these are the names of his daughters: Bela and Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Zirzah. They came near before Eleazar the priest and before Joshua the son of Nun, before the leaders, saying, "The Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our brothers." So according to the command of the Lord, he gave them an inheritance among their father's brothers. Thus there fell 10 portions to Manasseh, besides the land of Gilead and Bashan, which is beyond the Jordan, because the daughters of Manasseh received an inheritance among his sons, and the land of Gilead belonged to the rest of the sons of Manasseh.
I love these women. They said, hey, wait a minute, our dad doesn't deserve to not have an inheritance following him. We will stand for him. We want his inheritance. They stood up and they asked politely of Moses for what was right. And Moses asked God, and God said, yep, that's right. Do it. They were honorable, godly women who walked in the blessing of their father. Others from the tribe of Manasseh, some of them are really good, but they kind of show a mixture. Gideon was from Manasseh. Gideon. Remember Gideon? Yeah. 300 men against all of the, and they won. He started off so good. He didn't end up so good. He ended up with idolatry and building idols. Abimelech and Jotham, they're both from the tribe of Manasseh. Abimelech led first, and he was kind of good to start with, but then he started off into idolatry. He's in Judges chapter 9. You can read all of these. Judges 6, Judges 9. And then in Judges 9:5, Jotham killed his brother and took over. And they got even worse by killing others for no cause other than that he wanted to be a leader. So he went from bad to worse. There's others. Jair, though, in Judges chapter 10, it says, after him arose Jair, a Gileadite, and he judged Israel 22 years. Nothing bad is said about him anywhere. There was a good guy. A good guy. Jephthah, he was also good. And there's another one who is of the inhabitants of Gilead. An inhabitant of Gilead. Does anyone know who that is? He's one who will herald in the Messiah. Elijah. Elijah, yeah. Most of the judges that came from Manasseh ended pretty badly. Most of them started well and turned and went after other gods. So with the good, then came judgment. Just as rain can bring beauty and wonderful things, but too much of it and we have flood, right? So with the good, that can turn. It can turn. Floods can bring destruction. And yet, even with death, there's promises. There's always the promise. There's always the hope. The birth of Benjamin, the son of joy, from the death of Rachel, and the rainbow, the promise of God. The ark was the provision of salvation. The ark was the provision of salvation. And in Mar Cheshvan, Noah went onto the ark, and God closed the door, and the rain started. And in Mar Cheshvan, God finally said, okay, Noah, get off the boat. Get out there. Do what you're supposed to do now. So there is the rain that brings destruction, but there's always salvation. There is the rainbow, which promises God will not destroy again in that manner. There's always a promise. There's always provision. From Elijah, the land of Manasseh, comes the one who heralds Messiah. To Manasseh has been given the month of rain and snow, the month of the flood, the month of the ark and the rainbow, and the promise that no matter how dark it gets, no matter how heavy the rain, we have a promise of salvation. The verse that was chosen for this month, Janie put these out, and they're on the back tables. Everyone can take one. It's a bookmark for you to use. Out of Lamentations 3:26, it says, "It is good that one should hope and wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." It's a quiet time. It is a time to hope, time to wait, and look for the salvation of the Lord. Messiah has come, Messiah is come, and Messiah will come. Sometimes we have to quietly wait. This month of quiet and rest from all those hectic days, it's a good time to catch our breath. It's a good time to rest. It's a good time to watch for what God is getting ready to do. And just as we see signs of death in the trees, right? The leaves are falling. We still have leaves on the tables. The leaves are falling. It looks like they're dying. The branches are coming off. This is a time when the tree's roots actually begin to dig deeper down, and the roots grow more, and the roots grow deeper, and the roots grow deeper, and the roots go deeper. Preparation for rebirth, preparation for fruit, preparation for the batter. Who has John chapter 12, verses 23 through 26?
And Jesus answered them, saying, The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. He who loves his life loses it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it to life eternal. If anyone serves me, he must follow me. And where I am, there my servant will be also. If anyone serves me, the Father will honor him.
Jesus says the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. How was he glorified? He was glorified in his death and in his resurrection. Because he didn't die to stay dead. He didn't die to stay there. He died to be raised. He died to put an end to death. He died to put an end to death. He died that we might live. This is a month where it looks like things are dying. And some things do. Some things, like my sunflowers, need to be pulled up by the roots. They need to go so they don't interfere with the new growth next year. Some things need to go. But that which is of God, that which needs to bear fruit, is going to grow deeper roots, deeper and deeper and deeper. And when we let the flesh die off, when all the leaves fall, the trees have to dig deeper for nourishment. When it looks like everything is worst, we have to dig into God. We have to. We have to. We don't have a choice. We have to let the flesh die off, that the life of God can be made stronger in us. And I'm going to read out of 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 13 through 17, some of my favorite passages. For if we are out of our minds, some people think I'm crazy, you know. If I'm crazy, it's for God. That's what he says. If we are in our right mind, it's for you. For the love of Messiah compels us, since we've concluded that one died for all, and as a result, all died. And he died for all, so that those who live might no longer live for themselves, but for the one who died for them and was raised. So from now on, we recognize no one in the flesh. Even though we've known Messiah according to the flesh, yet we no longer know him that way. If anyone is in Messiah, he is a new creation. The old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. And all these things are from God, who reconciled us to himself through Messiah and gave us a ministry of reconciliation. Our flesh has to die. And we have to dig in deeper. And we have to hold on tighter. And we have to be still and quiet. And wait in this season for what God is going to do. What God is going to do. 1 I was talking to someone today about all of the different weird things that have happened in my life, and I was reminded of a time that I was sitting in a psychologist's office. It's been a long time ago. But we were going through all of the traumas and the tragedies and all of the loss and all of the things that have happened, and he was trying to figure out how I had contributed. Because, you know, when you live from crisis to crisis to crisis, quite often you're the one that helps create the crisis. We do. You know, I function really well in crisis. You know why? Because I've had no choice. But sometimes when things calm down, we create our own crisis because we don't know how to function in calm. And that's what this psychologist was looking for. Where did I put crisis in? Where did I bring that? And he kept looking and he went, I can't find where you did. This was done by this person. The only thing you did was be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then he says to me, so I want to know, because you didn't put this in your stuff, how often you've been hospitalized. Well, I had a shoulder surgery. And no. How often have you been put in a mental hospital of some kind? To rest, to what? How many? I haven't. How have you avoided that? Knee power. That's what came out of my mouth. Knee power. You know, when it gets crisis, when it gets crazy, I get on my knees and I cry out to God. And I look for his salvation. And guess what? He holds me through it. He takes me through it. His faithfulness is so good. And the secular psychologist just looked at me. And I said, honestly, I'm going to tell you, I don't know how people who don't have a faith in a real God, who's interested in their life, I don't know how people without faith survive these things. And he said to me, they don't. They don't. Whatever you do, do not lose your faith. I'm not about to. I'm not going to lose it now. Why? Because it's the only thing that makes sense in the world. When we come to a month like March Esvan, where the busyness stops and we sit back, where the leaves begin to fall off, the flowers begin to die, the rain comes, hard things happen, that's the time to dig our roots down. It's the time to let God be God and let him bring the fruit. And quit striving so hard. Use our knee power. In the secret, in the quiet place, in the stillness, you are there. And in that secret, in that quiet hour, I wait because I want to know you more. And like the last song we did, even when you don't see it, he's working. Even when we don't feel it, he's working. It isn't how we feel. It isn't what we see. It's what he's doing. Those of you who know us know we're going through a real hard time. Things we thought would happen haven't. Deliverances we thought would come didn't. But we're not done yet. We're not done yet. I'm not done yet. Why? Because God made a promise. God made a promise. I believe that promise. We've got that promise plastered all over our walls, don't we, Craig? I've printed out verses. I've put them up. God made us promises. And he hasn't contradicted one of those promises yet. Nobody has. When we've asked people to pray for us, their responses have all been the same. Yeah, God's going to take care of this. God's going to take care of you. God's going to take care of this. Okay, God, so when? Right? When? I want it yesterday. Because this process is painful. In this process, there is loss. In this process, there is hurt. In this process, there's a lot of tears. Been a lot of knee power being applied. And in the middle of it all, recognizing that while it may seem bitter, just like the beginning of the month, The mar could mean bitter, could also mean a drop or a droplet. Well, this month could mean rain. It can also mean quiet. And we can have a drop of quiet. And the rain God brings can be good rain. And we hold on to the faith. And we dig our roots in deeper. And it's not always easy. And it doesn't always feel good. And sometimes all of the negative stuff just goes and goes and goes and goes. But God. In this month where there are no holy days, no days of fasting, where there's no great mitzvot to do, it's reserved for Messiah. After all, it's the month of the Ark. The Ark is salvation. So it's reserved for Messiah. So let's give Messiah what is due him. Give him this month in our lives. Abba, Father, I thank you for today, and I thank you for your word. I thank you for what you've shown me. I thank you for what you revealed to me. I study this stuff to teach it, but Lord, you, always it applies. And it becomes so real. Because you are real. And Lord, in the middle of all of this, we lean into you. And we love you. And we trust you. And we ask that our roots would go deeper and deeper and deeper. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, our Lord, our Messiah. Amen and amen.
And I will be like a tree planted by the
We hope you've enjoyed and been blessed by today's service. We gladly welcome all who are interested in learning about the roots of our faith to join us in person. We meet every Shabbat, Saturday at 10:30 a.m. in 3318 Maryland Avenue in Klamath Falls, Oregon. If you would like to join us in person and need directions or have a prayer request, please call us at 541-884-8307, send us an email to ministry@sabbathstreams.org, or mail us a letter. Our mailing address is Sabbath Streams Ministries, P.O. Box 1938, Klamath Falls, Oregon 97601. Sabbath Streams is a small ministry with a small budget, but a big vision. If we have been a blessing to you, please consider blessing us with your financial support. Donations to this ministry are gladly accepted and are tax deductible. Sabbath Streams Ministries is registered in Oregon as a religious non-profit organization. Visit us at www.sabbathstreams.org for more information. We look forward to seeing you again next week at Sabbath Streams Ministries. Until then, Shalom.